nation's focus is on a massive storm barreling toward the Florida coast. Hurricane Matthew is expected to reach Category 4 level when it makes landfall as early as tonight, and it has already killed more than 100 people in the Caribbean, leading Florida Governor Rick Scott to issue a direct and dire warning at a press conference this morning.
If you're reluctant to evacuate, just think of all the people this storm has already killed. You and your family could be among these numbers if you don't take this seriously. There are no excuses. You need to leave. Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate.
Governor Scott's equivalent of get off the beach. Georgia, South Carolina, and other states are on alert, and the White House is urging residents to take this deadly storm seriously. Both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have expressed concern in statements and on Twitter for the people of Florida. The Sunshine State is, of course, a critical election battleground. Ivanka Trump canceled the scheduled event there today, while the Clinton campaign closed offices in the state and suspended its TV ads running on local Weather Channel stations. Today, President Obama has declared a state of emergency in Florida. This afternoon, on a conference call with reporters, Clinton's campaign manager Robbie Mook suggested that Florida officials should push back the state's October 11th voter registration deadline because of the hurricane. You may recall that in the past two presidential election cycles, both have been disrupted in a fundamental way by monster storms. So, Mark, my question for you is, in what ways do you think Hurricane Matthew might affect the presidential race this year?
Well, it's uncertainty, and presidential campaigns look for certainty. They hate stuff like this because they don't really know where the storm's going to go, how long it'll dominate the news, not just in Florida, but nationally, and what impact it'll have. I think there's two big things to look at. There's lots of parameters, but lots of variables, but two big things. One is Governor Scott. He is Donald Trump's chief proponent in this state. For the short term, he's going to be incredibly busy. He's not going to be thinking much about politics. On the other hand, if he comes out of this having handled it well, if his popularity surges, Donald Trump's top surrogate could be mega popular in Florida for the duration. On the Democratic side, the Clinton campaign had a much better machine to try to deal with voter registration, early voting, absentee ballots. Does the bad weather make their strong machine stand out more, or does it spoil everything because people aren't concerned with voting and that hurts their chances? That we don't know.
Right. Just for the history lesson here, people remembering these last two cycles. In 2008, it was a storm that disrupted the Republican convention to some extent, but not later in the voting cycle. Obviously, in 2012, you had both a hurricane that disrupted the Republican convention for the second time in a row in Tampa, and then we had, obviously, Hurricane Sandy, which had a huge impact on everything, partly because it was so close to New York and the media markets and so on. I think, Governor Scott matters to some extent, but the second thing you talked about, I think, is more important. And it seems to me both sides, their get-out-the-vote operations are going to be affected negatively by this impact. So it seems to me that the one that is better is going to be better placed to deal with it just because they're better and more dug in.
They're counting on more votes that way. And if the storm is sufficiently powerful that people are away from their homes, they can't find their ballots, it may be that the Clintons don't bank the advantage they thought, because very few people will vote early under these circumstances. It depends on how disruptive the storm is and for how long.
Yes. Obviously, all the questions relate to how long this thing goes on and how disruptive it is, especially in Florida, which is obviously going to be a super, super, super important state.